The race to 5G is on, and the battle for talent is getting fierce. Welcome to 5G Talent Talk with Carrie Charles, a podcast dedicated to helping you face the future workforce head on. Navigate this challenging talent landscape with innovative strategies to attract, retain, and engage people in this new world of work. Only here on 5G Talent Talk with Carrie Charles, CEO of Broadstaff Talent Solutions.
Thank you for joining me today on 5G Talent Talk. My name is Carrie Charles, and I will be your host. I have a special guest with me today. It's Matt O'Brien. He is the president and CEO of KLA Laboratories. Matt, thanks for joining me today. I'm super excited about this discussion.
Absolutely, Carrie. Thanks for having me on.
So, Matt, I met you years ago, and we've stayed in touch a bit. And I was always just so impressed by your journey and your story. And I'm really excited to get into that today, as well as talk about KLA. But can you talk about how you got to where you are today in your seat?
Sure. So KLA is a 94-year-old company and originated in 1929 in Detroit, Michigan as an audio company. If you think about audio and technology in 1929, it was really advanced technology when they started building microphones and speakers, because then they could present an event and everyone could hear. It wasn't just yelling really loud. So now we had this new technology, and it was the three founders, KL and A, were friends, and they got together and started this company. And my father was in World War II. He was a radio specialist and happened to run into an employee at KLA in 1947. And he said, "Hey, we're looking for new talent. Come on down. We're hiring." So my dad went there and interviewed with the founders of the company, and he was hired on the spot. My dad was an amazing man, very dynamic. Everybody loved him. He lit up a room when you walked in. You just loved the guy. So it was obvious why he got picked. And so that was 1947. Fast forward, he actually told my mom, who they were dating at the time, that I'm going to buy that company someday. When I have enough money, those guys are going to be old enough to want to retire, and I'm going to buy them out. And he was true to his word. He started buying stock in the company in the 50s, and in the 60s, we had controlling interest. So that's kind of how the O'Brien family got into KLA. And then I've never worked anywhere else. So I grew up in the company, youngest of 6 kids. So we kind of all worked at KLA at some point. Family business is what you do. So I really formally started when I was 16 there in shipping and receiving. And I worked all the way through really pretty much every different area of the company. And then in 1991, my father passed away suddenly, had lung cancer, and 6 months later he passed. So it became a turning point in all of our lives and our family. My mom, who had never worked in the company, now 65, has this company, and 3 of us siblings were working in the company, and kind of had to make a decision. Do we keep the company going, and what do we do? And I really hadn't planned on working at KLA full time. I was in college, but that was kind of the fork in the road of life. I wanted to be a golf pro. I was a really good golfer, played in college, blah, blah, blah. I thought, wow, that's what I want to do. Sounded like a great plan, right? Sure.
Yes.
But this was family called, and this is what happened. And it's been obviously the greatest thing for me. It's turned out I've had an absolutely wonderful career. I worked up through sales and engineering and really been running the company for the past 25 solid years, and president and CEO for the last 21 or 22 years. My mom is still with us, doing great, and she's still my boss, technically. So it's fun and I'll go over and see her, 97 years old. And she's like, "So how are things at work?" It's still important to her to find out how things are going. And I'm like, "They're going great, Mom. Everything's good. We're doing really well." So that's kind of a long story, but that's how I got to where I am. And here I am at KLA. I think 39 years later, still, like I said, I've never worked anywhere else.
Boy, not a lot of people can say that. That is an incredible history and journey to get to where you are today. The history of KLA, and you said 94 years?
Yeah, 94.
Almost a century.
Right.
So how does this benefit customers and employees, this longevity?
We still have clients that we've had the entire 94 years. Ford Motor Company, we have done work for them for 94 years. So the history of the company and the way that the original founders ran the company, and then my dad had his version of the company, and that was instilled in me. So it was a successful company for many, many, many years before I came along. So I was taught how the company was successful, the past. And basically, this is how to take it into the future and keep it going. And a part of it was a company always has to be relevant. So you have to reinvent yourself a lot. We joke internally, we're a 94-year-old startup because we always have to think of where we want the company to be and go. And so that's kind of a startup mentality. And we have to be looking of where do we want KLA in several years. And through my tenure, we've gone in a lot of different directions and expanded our service offerings to our customers. Doesn't necessarily mean we look for new customers. We do, but we also want to be more relevant with our existing client base.
So what are your service offerings? Let's go a little deeper here. And what do you offer? What problems do you solve? And who do you serve?
Really large enterprise clients. We're doing work in manufacturing spaces, in stadiums, arenas, convention centers, data centers. We offer a whole gamut of systems integration, technology integration. So local area networks, Wi-Fi, DAS networks, audiovisual solutions, and we do all the infrastructure to support all that. So we design the network, we install the cabling, the fiber and the copper cabling for that network. We deploy all the switches and Wi-Fi access points or DAS antennas, and then we commission it and we do ongoing monitoring and maintenance of it all. So it's really, we're a full turnkey shop of all of that, and we do it all in-house, essentially. And we're headquartered in Michigan. We have an office in Las Vegas, and we recently opened in Irvine, California. But we work across the country. We have boots on the ground in Canada, Mexico, and throughout the US. And we do deploy globally too. So we have projects going on in India and different areas, so in Europe.
So from a culture standpoint, how has your culture evolved over the years? And tell us what it's like to work for KLA now.
The culture has, I'll go back to really kind of what I talked about when they laid out how this great company and they built it. And I think I mentioned to you when we met recently that we have union personnel, IBEW union personnel that are third generation that worked. Their grandpa worked at KLA before my dad started there, and then their dad. So grandpa worked 40 years at the company, dad worked 40 years at the company, and then two of them are almost at 40 years now. And that's a union position. So normally they can go to another company pretty easily. It's not necessarily that they have, it just isn't normal for people to work at one company their entire career in the field. So we have that at that level, but this culture, and again, it's a family business and it still has that family feel. And I think a lot of people like that because everyone's important. And if someone is struggling in an area, people will step in and help them out. We're all in this together. You would help a sibling out if they needed help. It's kind of that thing. And I really think that's a big key to our culture and longevity.
So many companies today say we have a family culture, and companies are struggling because there's employees and team members that aren't even staying a year or 2 years. And we're challenged with retention and quiet quitting. And there's just all these buzzwords that we need to worry about as leaders these days. And to look at your retention rate, what is your retention rate, by the way? I know it's got to be amazing.
I don't know.
It's high.
It's high. Yeah, I can't give you an exact number, but
that's okay.
And it's kind of something I don't necessarily, not that I'm not concerned because it is the world we live in, but what we really do here, and we've been doing this for a long time before there was issues with retention, is KLA is such a diverse company in what our service offerings are and where we do our work. So you could be working in a stadium one day and you could be working in a manufacturing plant the next day, or a hotel, a hospital. So if somebody's in an area and they see what we do in another area, we are very clear that they have opportunities for career growth and they can move around in the company. So you can job jump inside KLA without leaving. And that we've been doing that for a very long time. And that, I think, is another key to our retention rate, I would say.
And are there strong relationships within the company? I mean, I'm fascinated by this because we're all struggling with this as entrepreneurs and companies, and retention is a huge problem. So can you give us maybe one other strategy or another part of your secret sauce to retention and that strong culture you've built?
Yeah, I think having regular meetings and regular discussions and meeting with people early on in their career. We have this internship program, I think, that we're going to talk about in a little bit. But these interns come in and they're put really in pretty important roles in the company, and they're learning things right out of the gate. And I think part of that is we foster that culture, and we really try to get people to get exposed to a lot of different things. And then they're like, wow, that's cool. I like where I work. I like what I do. This is interesting. I don't know where I'm going to be tomorrow. I might be on a different site. And it's always feel like it's not just the same thing every single day. You don't wake up and do the same thing. And that was something that I loved about the company when I was a kid, because I didn't know where I was going to go the next day. You get to work and, okay, you're driving here, you're going there. And it's always been that way. And I think that's really key to why it still works.
Let's go a little deeper into the internship program. So how does that work and what feeds that program?
Yeah, so I'm a graduate of Henry Ford College. It's a local college here in Dearborn, and they have a Cisco Academy. So we partnered with the Cisco Academy to start this internship program, and it went really, really well. We have gotten some, just our rock stars of our company have come out of that, come in as interns, and we have 34 people that are full-time in careers at KLA that came through that program in the last 10 years, 12 years. So we started a scholarship program. We endowed a scholarship, the KLA Technology Scholarship at Henry Ford College, and it's specific to the Cisco Academy. And so they can apply for the scholarship, and a part of that, they get a paid internship at KLA. And basically that's the door opening and them getting in and looking and seeing what they may like and want to pursue a career at KLA. So that's kind of how that all began. But when we talk to those interns early on, we are very careful to talk to them about what the long-term goal could be of them. So it's like if you bring someone in who just either is finishing up college and tell them this is what the possibility could be, it kind of makes them feel that maybe that's a good plan for me. And for the most part, it works out.
How do you develop leaders, identify and develop leaders? I mean, it's clear that you are committed to growth and development. And that's something that our young people today, it's a huge priority for them. So how do you take someone through that process of developing leaders? And obviously succession is a big priority because you want to be around another 100 years, I'm sure,
right.
Or maybe 500, right?
Hey, I'm good with 500. I mean, that's pretty solid. I have a great leadership team. These are very seasoned people, and they either came from other industries or they came all the way up through the ranks at KLA. So we've always done a lot of, I would say, mentoring, coaching, job shadowing. There's a lot of communication that happens in departmental leadership levels with the team. And so having that dialogue, I think, at that level really helps people get a better feel for what goes on in the company beyond what they see in their purview, essentially. So, and leaders, as they go through the ranks, they raise up. So we want to see that, and we want to help grow that and cultivate that. So that would be some of the keys, I would say, in how we develop internally our leadership.
Everything you're saying is really what the younger generations are asking for right now, which is not only growth and development, but mentorship and the ability to grow and experience different things within a company versus going outside of it. I mean, this is great stuff. I mean, I could rewind this and take so many notes. So I know that you're also committed to creating a diverse, inclusive workforce and environment. How do you do that at KLA?
The wonderful thing about KLA is KLA has always fostered a culture of diversity in our workforce historically. So I felt it was very important as society has changed in recent years. It was important for us to formalize our DEI initiatives and basically implement programs around that, make a statement, and we have instituted policies and formal training around it. So it's very important to me. And the great thing is it didn't take much for us to implement these initiatives. So I'm very proud. We pulled together a team within KLA of diverse individuals. And it's important that everybody, and people are our greatest asset. And it's important that people feel that they work in a safe environment and they can be their true selves. And that's really what we feel. And that's always been the case at KLA.
What about ESG? Any initiatives here? What are your thoughts?
As a part of some of those training programs, we looked at our policies around ESG, and we're doing quarterly training. We're looking at our policies and looking at procurement and how can we be more green, and just looking at a lot of different things and incorporating those different considerations around ESG.
Matt, I saw you recently at an Entrepreneur of the Year event, and I know that you were a winner of Entrepreneur of the Year in the past. So I want to ask you, as an entrepreneur, what would you do differently if you had it to do all over again? If you were sitting 20 years ago and you said, okay, I can change something or do something differently, because I really want to look at the key elements of your success here.
That's a really interesting question. I don't know that I would do anything different. Thought about this, but I would have loved for it to have happened quicker. It's like, I don't think I made any mistakes. I think what I was doing, I had a dream, I had a vision to grow the company and take us into the different areas. And I still believe in what I believed in then. I just wish you want success quicker. So I'm very proud of what we've accomplished and where the company is and where it's going. So I guess I wouldn't necessarily change what I was doing or do it differently, but the key elements to the success and what we've done is I had a dream. I came up with an idea. It's like, let's do this. And then I would talk to my leadership and I would listen to what they would say. And sometimes they say, that's a crazy idea. And if they say that, I'm doing my job, because it's like, they're like, we can't do that. Well, that's good. Let's figure out how. And then you be creative around that and you figure out how to do it.
What drives you?
I'm carrying on a legacy of a company that's ingrained into my family for generations, really. And I believe there's a lot more to do. We've come a long way during my era of the company. And I think there's more to do. It still excites me. I wake up and it's just like technology and where things are going to go in the future that's what really keeps me interested in what I do every single day.
So what's your vision for 2023, maybe 5 years? What's next? I mean, maybe even 500. What we could say, we could create that.
I like that. I like the 500. 2023, we're going to continue some of the great progress we made in 2022. It was a difficult year with some of the supply chain issues, but a lot of that has eased up. So 22 was a good year, and looking forward to continuing our growth both in regionally, so our expansion out west and some of our new clients, and really carry that vision into the next 5 years. So we always have to stay on the forefront of technology as things change and new technology comes out. We want to make sure that we're leaders in that and continue that technological growth and those service offerings to our clients.
So Matt, I want to ask you a personal question as our final question, and I hope you don't mind sharing, but I know that you're a leukemia survivor. And
yes,
I'm curious, how did this change the company and how did this change you?
That's a great question. So in 2000, I was diagnosed with hairy cell leukemia, and the company was going really well and growing. And all of a sudden, basically, I was hit a stop sign and I had to go in and be treated in the hospital. And I was out of work. I was in the hospital for 3 months and worked through that. And the wonderful thing about KLA, and I spoke about our leadership and how it's always been, but Tommy Cataldo, who's our chief operating officer, he stepped up to run the company while my mom was still at the company, but she had to take care of me and make sure I survived ultimately. So Tommy stepped up and really took care of things at the office while I was out. What really changed my perspective in life and just took things a lot less seriously, I guess, because life is short, and we've all, getting through this pandemic, we've all kind of had a life-changing, eye-opening experience. But I had that at that time, and I came back. And since then, I've been involved with the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. I've been on the board since 2004. And we host a golf outing every year to raise money for leukemia research. Obviously, super passionate about it. The drug that treated me and saved my life was funded by Leukemia Society. So super close to my heart and tied to the cause. So since we started this golf outing, this will be our 10th anniversary of it this year. We've raised over $350,000 that's gone to the Leukemia Society for research. And so super passionate about it. I'm really very, very, very fortunate to be as healthy as I am and a survivor. And this was so obvious I need to get back and help. So that's my story on leukemia.
Matt, you are such an inspiration, and I can just feel the heart in KLA. And it really is inspiring to me as I listen to all of these different points that you've made and how you've become successful and how KLA has been successful for so many years. And it all just hits home. It's everything that we're reading about today about people first culture and how to give people a voice and allow people to grow and develop and have the flexibility and the opportunity to be themselves and trust them. And I mean, everything you said is exactly where we need to be and every company needs to be today. So I want to thank you for coming on the show. This has just been fantastic. And I appreciate you sharing your heart and being authentic.
Thank you, Carrie. I really appreciate you inviting me. And this has been great. I really appreciate it.
Lastly, how can we reach you? How can we find out more about KLA and your open jobs? I'm sure you're hiring.
Absolutely. KLAlabs.com. And there's a career tab on there. So you can take a look and see our openings across the country.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks, Carrie.
Take care.
You too.
Thank you for listening to another informative episode of 5G Talent Talk, brought to you by RCR Wireless News, Telecom Careers, and Broadstaff Talent Solutions. As we advance into the future, we promise to bring you the resources you need to navigate this ever-changing landscape of 5G to help you attract, retain, and engage people in this new world of work. To access the show notes or leave a review, visit broadstaffglobal.com. Until next time.